Rain drummed against the windshield like the rhythm of a tired city heartbeat. It was almost midnight, and Chicago's streets were nearly empty except for the occasional bus and a few restless souls running for shelter. Darius wiped the fog from his window with a rag, his breath misting the glass again almost instantly. The night was cold, damp, and lonely, the kind of night that made people question the paths that led them here. He checked the digital clock on the dashboard. 11:48 p.m. "All right, one more fare," he muttered to himself. He always said that. One more fare before heading home to his one-bedroom apartment on the south side, a place that felt emptier since his mother passed. His phone buzzed, connected through the car's old Bluetooth radio. Dispatch came through with the static of cheap speakers. Cab 447, got a call, Lake and Wabash. Passenger heading uptown. You available? Darius hesitated. Lake and Wabash wasn't the safest area this late. But there was something in the dispatcher's tone. Maybe it was the way the man said, "She sounds desperate." He pressed the mic button. "Copy that. I'll take it." As he turned the corner, the city unfolded before him in gray and orange streaks of light. Neon signs blinked from half-closed diners and liquor stores. Steam rose from grates, mixing with the rain in small bursts. Then he saw her. She was standing beneath a flickering streetlight, clutching a small handbag tight to her chest. Her hair was soaked, and her coat, an elegant cream trench that had clearly seen better days, clung to her as the rain poured. She looked like she didn't belong there. Darius slowed down, rolling his window halfway. "Ma'am, you call for a cab?" She nodded quickly. "Yes." "Please, I need to get uptown. River North." Her voice cracked a little at the end, like she'd been crying or running. "Hop in," he said, unlocking the doors. She slid into the back seat, shivering. The scent of her perfume, faint but expensive, lingered in the air. Something like jasmine, or maybe sandalwood. Darius adjusted the rearview mirror. "You okay, miss?" She hesitated, then looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but sharp. "Just, please drive." He nodded. He'd seen enough people during his 10 years behind the wheel to know when to talk and when not to. This was a not-to kind of night. The cab eased into traffic, wipers squeaking with every pass. Darius tried not to stare through the mirror, but the woman's reflection kept drawing his eyes. She was young, late 20s, maybe early 30s, and beautiful in a fragile kind of way. But it wasn't just beauty. It was something heavier, something that carried weight. Halfway through Michigan Avenue, she finally spoke. "Do you drive every night?" Darius blinked, caught off guard. "Pretty much. Pays the bills, keeps the lights on. You know how it is." She nodded slowly. "Do you like it?" He chuckled under his breath. "Like it? No. But I'm good at it. That counts for something." The woman gave a faint smile. That's rare these days, people being good at something they don't love. He tilted his head. "And what about you? You do what you love." Her smile faded. "I used to." The silence after that was heavier than the rain. Darius turned on the heater, glancing at the dashboard. "So, River North, right?" "Yes." 51, East Erie Street. He knew that address. That was a luxury high-rise, the kind of building where cars like his weren't even allowed to park near the entrance. He whistled softly. "That's a nice spot." She didn't reply. Instead, she pulled out her phone, stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned it face down on her lap. They drove in silence again. Darius thought about asking more questions, but he stopped himself. You learn not to pry in this line of work. Some people get into your car because they need to get somewhere. Others get in because they need to escape something. When they hit a red light near Grant Park, Darius noticed something in the mirror. A black SUV. It had been behind them for the last 4 blocks. He frowned. Maybe coincidence. But when the light turned green, and he turned left, the SUV turned too. He cleared his throat. "Miss, are we being followed?" The woman's eyes widened. "What color is the car?" "Black." "Maybe a Cadillac. Got tinted windows." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then she whispered, "Just keep driving. Don't stop." Something cold ran through Darius's chest. "You in trouble?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a pair of sunglasses, at midnight, and slid them on. "Please," she said softly. "Just trust me." The SUV behind them switched lanes, keeping its distance. Darius tightened his grip on the wheel. He'd driven through robberies, fights, even one car chase once, but never something like this. He pressed his foot on the gas and took the next turn faster than usual. The woman looked back, her breathing quick. "They're still there," she murmured. He thought for a second. "There's a back road by Wacker. Not many lights, but I can lose them there." "Do it." He swung the car down a narrow side street, tires splashing through puddles. The SUV followed for a moment, then suddenly stopped at the corner and turned off its headlights. Darius slowed down. "They're gone." The woman exhaled sharply, shoulders slumping in relief. "Thank you." Darius parked briefly near an alley. "Ma'am, if you're in danger, we can go to the police station." "It's 2 minutes away." She shook her head quickly. "No. Please. Don't involve anyone." Her tone was desperate now, almost begging. Darius studied her face in the mirror. She wasn't lying. Whatever was happening, it was real, and it scared her. He sighed. "All right. I won't ask questions. You just tell me where you need to go." "Just take me to that address," she said quietly. "And please, don't tell anyone you saw me." He nodded, started the engine again, and drove on. As they neared the river, the city lights reflected on the water like a painting. The woman stared out, lost in thought. After a while, she whispered, "Do you believe people can change, Darius?" He froze. "Wait, how do you know my name?" She smiled faintly. "It's on your license." "Oh, right." He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, I guess people can change. I mean, I had to. Used to be a mechanic. Life didn't work out. Now I'm here." "Do you regret it?" she asked. He thought about that for a moment. "Sometimes. But regret's like a parking ticket. You can pay it and move on, or you can let it pile up till it ruins your day." The woman laughed softly. It was the first time he heard something lighter in her voice. "That's actually wise. Guess being broke makes you philosophical," he grinned. Her smile lingered, but then her expression shifted again, like a memory hit her out of nowhere. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on a single text notification lighting up her screen. "We know where you are." Her hand froze midair. "Miss," Darius said, concern rising. She turned off the phone, shoved it back into her bag, and said, "Can you take the long route, please?" "Sure." "You all right? Just, don't stop." "Not yet." Darius nodded slowly and turned toward the bridge, taking the long curve by the river. As the city stretched in front of them, he could feel the tension filling the air. Whoever this woman was, she wasn't just running from someone. She was running from something big. He wanted to ask, but again, something in him said don't. Instead, he turned on the radio, a soft jazz station that filled the silence. Minutes passed before she finally spoke again. "You have family, Darius?" "Not anymore. Mom passed a few years ago. Dad was never around. Just me now." She looked at him with a sadness he couldn't place. "You must miss her." He nodded. "Every day." She used to say something, "What you give without expecting back always comes back when you need it most." Guess I try to live by that. The woman smiled faintly. "Your mother was a wise woman." "She was," he said softly. They stopped at a light near the bridge. Rain streaked the windshield, and for a moment, everything went still. Then, a soft vibration. The woman's phone lit up again. She hesitated before looking. Another message. "You shouldn't have left. We warned you." Her breath caught. Darius turned slightly. "Who keeps texting you like that?" "No one," she whispered. "Please, just drive." He obeyed, but the worry gnawed at him. He'd seen fear before, but this wasn't normal fear. It was deeper, like she'd been living with it for a long time. They passed the Chicago River, and she leaned closer to the window, staring at the reflection of the lights on the water. "Funny," she said quietly. "You can build a whole empire, but one mistake and it all falls apart overnight." Darius frowned. "You sound like someone who's lived that." She smiled, almost painfully. "Maybe." The closer they got to River North, the more restless she seemed. She checked the mirror repeatedly, adjusted her coat, and even lowered herself slightly in the seat when another black SUV passed them going the opposite way. When they finally reached 51 East Erie, Darius pulled up under the golden awning. The doorman at the entrance instantly recognized her. His eyes widened, then lowered respectfully as he stepped aside. Darius blinked. "Who is she?" She reached for her purse. "How much do I owe you?" Darius shook his head. "Don't worry about it. Ride's on me." She looked stunned. "No, please. You've been driving for almost an hour." "Ma'am," he said gently. "My mom used to say, never take money from someone running from pain. You look like you're running from a lot more than rain tonight." Her eyes softened. For a moment, it looked like she was about to cry. Then she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Darius. I won't forget this." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small folded piece of paper, handing it to him. "If you ever need anything at all, call this number." Before he could respond, she opened the door, stepped out, and hurried toward the entrance. The doorman quickly ushered her inside. Darius watched her disappear into the grand lobby, still trying to process everything. He unfolded the note. Inside was a handwritten name, Amara Whitfield. And below it, a number. He frowned. The name sounded familiar. When he got home later that night, curiosity got the better of him. He searched it online. And when the results loaded, his jaw dropped. Amara Whitfield, tech billionaire, CEO of Whitfield Innovations. Missing for 2 weeks. The headline glared at him from every news outlet. Her company had made headlines after a sudden disappearance amid a multimillion-dollar scandal and rumors of corruption. Darius sat there in stunned silence, heart pounding. The woman he just drove, the one who refused the police, who looked over her shoulder, who seemed afraid of her own shadow, wasn't just anybody. She was one of the most powerful women in the country. And now she knew his name. And his address, printed right there on his taxi license. Darius barely slept that night. He sat in the dark, the glow of his old laptop reflecting off the cracked wall, staring at Amara Whitfield's photo on the news site. Her smile on the screen was elegant, confident, nothing like the broken woman who'd sat in the back of his cab hours ago. The articles painted her as a ghost. Some claimed she ran away after her company was caught in a massive data scandal. Others said she was kidnapped by her own investors. But one thing was certain, no one had seen her in 2 weeks. And Darius had. He rubbed his face, anxiety twisting in his gut. If she was in hiding, then whoever sent those threatening messages probably wouldn't stop until they found her. And if they somehow traced her last movements, they'd find him. He exhaled shakily. Man, what did I just get myself into? He thought about calling the number she gave him. But what would he even say? "Hey, I just found out you're a missing billionaire. Need a ride again?" Ridiculous. He shut the laptop, deciding to forget about it. She was safe now. That's all that mattered. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. The next morning, the rain had cleared. The city woke up with its usual rhythm, the honking, the rush, the chatter. Darius tried to lose himself in his work. Pick up, drop off, repeat. But every passenger that stepped into his cab reminded him of her. Every turn near the river made his chest tighten. Around noon, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, until he remembered her note. "Hello," he answered carefully. There was silence for a few seconds, then a soft voice. "Darius." His heart skipped. "Amara." "Yes. I'm sorry for calling you like this, but I didn't know who else to trust." He swallowed hard. "You shouldn't be calling me. People are looking for you. The whole city's talking about it." "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I need your help." He rubbed his forehead. "Look, I'm just a taxi driver. I don't get involved in this kind of—" "Please, Darius." Her voice cracked. "You're the only person who didn't ask for something from me. The only person who didn't treat me like a name or a story. I just need one more favor." He hesitated. Every part of him screamed no. But the tone in her voice, the same trembling fear from last night, made it impossible to hang up. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "Meet me in the same place you picked me up. Tonight." "Midnight." "Midnight again? Why always at night?" "Because it's safer," she said softly. "Please, Darius. I'll explain everything." The line went dead. Darius stared at his phone. He knew this was a bad idea. But he also knew he wasn't going to ignore her. By the time the clock hit midnight, the city was half asleep again. The streets glistened from a light drizzle as Darius pulled up to Lake and Wabash, the same flickering streetlight, the same hollow quiet. Only this time, she wasn't alone. A man in a dark gray coat stood near her, talking in low, hurried tones. Amara looked nervous, clutching something in her hand. When she saw Darius's cab, relief washed over her face. She quickly said something to the man, then rushed to the car. "Drive," she whispered, slamming the door behind her. Darius didn't wait to ask. He pulled off the curb and merged into the main road. "You okay?" She glanced out the window, breathing fast. "I think so. He's one of my father's men. They've been following me since I left the company." "Your father's men?" Darius frowned. "I thought you ran your own thing." "I do. But my father still has influence. Too much, actually." He stayed silent, waiting. Amara sighed. "You read the news, didn't you?" He nodded. "Hard not to. They're calling you everything from a runaway CEO to a criminal." Her jaw tightened. "Of course they are. That's what power does. It turns truth into whatever the highest bidder pays for." "Then what really happened?" Darius asked. She took a deep breath, staring out into the blur of lights passing by. "My company, Whitfield Innovations, was working on a new system, a surveillance algorithm designed for government contracts. It could track people in real time using public data, faces, locations, voice recognition. It was supposed to be used for public safety." Darius nodded slowly. "Sounds like something out of a spy movie." She gave a humorless smile. "It became worse than that. I found out the board was planning to sell it to private militaries. And when I refused to sign the deal, they fabricated evidence against me, made it look like I'd stolen company data." Darius' hands tightened on the steering wheel. "So you ran?" "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "They froze my accounts, hacked my emails, even planted things in my apartment. I barely made it out that night." He glanced at her reflection in the mirror. She looked exhausted, pale, haunted. "Why tell me all this?" he asked quietly. "Because I need someone I can trust to take me somewhere," she said. "Somewhere no one will look for me." He frowned. "Where?" "Indiana. A small cabin near Lake Wawasee. It was my mother's. No one knows about it." Darius exhaled. "That was at least 3 hours away. That's a long drive." "I'll pay you, Darius. Anything you want." He turned slightly. "I told you, I don't want your money." Her voice softened. "Then, do it for the woman who believed people could still change." That line hit him like a punch. He looked at her through the mirror. Her eyes were tired, but there was still that same flicker of hope. He nodded. "All right. But we leave now." Amara smiled faintly. "Thank you." They drove through the night, the hum of the tires mixing with the low jazz on the radio. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by long stretches of highway and dark forests. Around 2 a.m., they stopped at a gas station just outside Gary, Indiana. Darius filled up the tank while Amara went inside to grab some coffee. When she came back, her hands were shaking slightly as she handed him a cup. "You really shouldn't be helping me," she said quietly. "If they find out, they'll come after you too." He smirked. "Lady, I've been broke for years. Ain't much left they can take." She laughed, softly, but real this time. "You're impossible." "Yeah, that's what my ex used to say," he replied, sipping the coffee. "Didn't stop her from leaving anyway." They sat in silence for a moment before she said, "You ever think about leaving all this behind? Starting over somewhere new?" He shrugged. "Every day. But every time I try, life reminds me there's still something left to fix here." She studied him for a second. "You remind me of my mother." He blinked. "How's that?" She used to say, "The ones who help others without asking are the ones who were never helped themselves." Darius smiled faintly. "She sounds like someone I'd have liked." "She would have liked you too," Amara whispered. Back on the highway, the road stretched into darkness. They talked less now, both lost in thought. Darius couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they made it. Would she disappear again? Would he ever see her after this night? But his thoughts shattered when headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. A black SUV. Same one from last night. "Amara," he said sharply. "We got company." She looked back, panic flaring in her eyes. "That's them." Darius slammed his foot on the gas. The cab roared down the empty highway, rain splashing against the windshield. The SUV accelerated too, closing in fast. "They're trying to box us in," he said, gripping the wheel. "Take the next exit," she shouted. He swerved right, tires screeching, barely making the turn. The SUV followed, skidding slightly but staying close. "Who are these people?" he yelled. "My father's security team, but they're working for the board now. They'll do anything to bring me back." Darius cursed under his breath. He took another sharp turn onto a dirt road leading into a forested area. The SUV followed for a few seconds, then suddenly, the headlights vanished. Darius slowed down, eyes darting through the dark trees. "They gone." Amara leaned forward, scanning. "I think." Before she could finish, a loud bang echoed. A tire burst. The cab lurched sideways and came to a stop in the mud. Darius jumped out, checking. The back tire was shredded, blown clean. "Damn it," he muttered. Amara stepped out too, her face pale. "We can't stay here." "Cab's dead," he said. "We walk from here." They grabbed her bag and started through the trees, the moonlight barely breaking through the clouds. The woods were quiet except for their footsteps and the distant hum of the highway. After a while, Amara whispered, "Why are you still helping me, Darius?" He stopped, turning toward her. "Because you don't look like someone who deserves to be hunted." She looked at him for a long moment, then reached into her bag and pulled something out. A small silver flash drive. "This is why they want me," she said. "It's the backup data from my company. Proof of everything they did. If I can get this to a reporter, I can clear my name." He stared at it. "So that's what this is about?" "Yes. And if they find it?" He didn't let her finish. He took the drive and tucked it into his jacket. "Then they'll have to go through me first." She looked stunned. "Darius, no. Look, you trusted me enough to call. That means something. I ain't letting anyone hurt you now." For the first time, her eyes softened completely. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Thank you." They kept walking until the trees thinned and a faint glow appeared in the distance, a cabin, tucked deep in the woods. When they finally reached it, Amara exhaled shakily. "We made it." Darius turned toward her. "What now?" She hesitated, then said, "Now I disappear for good." He frowned. "You sure about that?" She nodded. "It's the only way to survive. Until the truth comes out." He sighed. "You know, people like me spend their lives trying to be seen. And people like you just want to vanish." She smiled sadly. "Maybe that's why we met." Before he could reply, the sound of an engine echoed faintly in the distance. They both froze. Headlights flickered between the trees. "They found us," she whispered. Darius reached for her hand. "Get inside. Now." The cabin lights flickered weakly as Darius bolted the door shut behind them. Rain had started again, tapping nervously on the windows like impatient fingers. Amara stood in the center of the small room, trembling, clutching the bag to her chest. Outside, the faint hum of an engine grew louder. "They're close," Darius said, peering through the blinds. Two sets of headlights were moving slowly through the trees. "They're searching." Amara's voice shook. We can't let them find that drive. I know. He scanned the room, one exit, one window, no signal on his phone. The place looked untouched for years, dust-covered furniture, old photos on the mantel, a broken clock ticking faintly. Darius turned to her. Is there a back way out? She nodded. There's an old storm door behind the pantry, leads into the woods. But it's small, only one person can fit through at a time. Then you go, he said firmly. Her eyes widened. What about you? I'll buy you time. Get to safety, call whoever you can trust. Tears welled up in her eyes. Darius, you'll get caught. He smirked faintly. Lady, I drive a cab for a living. Dodging people's been my whole career. Before she could argue, the crunch of boots outside froze them both. Someone shouted, We know you're in there, Miss Whitfield. Don't make this harder. Darius motioned toward the pantry. Go, he whispered. Amara hesitated for a moment, then grabbed his arm. You don't have to do this. He met her gaze. Yeah, I do. She pressed something into his palm, the flash drive. If I don't make it, make sure this gets out. Promise me. He closed his fingers around it. You have my word. Then she slipped through the pantry door and disappeared into the dark. Darius turned back to the window. Shadows moved closer. 3 men, all in dark suits, flashlights cutting through the rain. He could hear their muffled voices, the sound of guns cocking. He grabbed a fireplace poker from the corner and crouched near the door, his pulse hammering. A voice called again. Darius Cole, open up. You're obstructing a federal investigation. Yeah. Darius shouted back. You got a warrant. The man paused. Then the door exploded inward with a kick. Darius swung the poker, catching one man across the shoulder. Another tackled him, sending them both crashing to the floor. The room erupted in chaos, shouts, footsteps, glass breaking. Darius struggled, adrenaline surging. He managed to throw a punch that sent one agent sprawling. But before he could move again, a sharp blow hit his ribs, knocking the air from his lungs. Where is she? One man barked. Darius coughed, clutching his side. Who? The woman you picked up. Where is Amara Whitfield? He grinned weakly, blood trickling from his lip. Ain't no Amara here. Just a broke cab driver and his bad night. The man's jaw clenched. He signaled to another agent. Search the area. As they moved toward the pantry, Darius suddenly lunged, grabbing one by the leg and pulling him down. The man fell hard, his gun sliding across the floor. Darius snatched it, not to shoot, but to stall. Stay where you are, he shouted, aiming at the nearest one. The lead agent sneered. You think you can stop us? I don't need to stop you, Darius said, breathing hard. Just slow you down. Before they could react, he pulled the trigger, not at them, but at the old oil lamp on the table. The flame burst, spilling fire across the floor. The agents cursed and backed away as smoke filled the cabin. Darius bolted for the back door, coughing. He stumbled through the rain, clutching the flash drive in his pocket. The night swallowed him whole. He ran until his legs gave out. The rain drenched him, mud splashing beneath every step. Finally, he collapsed beneath a fallen tree, gasping for air. Amara, he shouted hoarsely. For a moment, nothing, only wind and rain. Then, faintly, a voice answered. Here. He turned, spotting her emerging from the trees, soaked but alive. She dropped beside him, trembling. You're hurt. I've had worse, he said, wincing. You okay? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. You shouldn't have come back for me. Yeah, well, my GPS doesn't know when to quit. She laughed through her tears, the sound broken but real. They sat there for a moment, breathing, letting the storm wash over them. In the distance, the cabin burned, orange light flickering through the rain. Amara watched it quietly. Everything I built, gone. Darius looked at her. Maybe that's a sign. A sign that it's time to build something better. She stared at him, eyes glistening. I don't even know where to start. He pulled the flash drive from his pocket, holding it out. Start with the truth. She hesitated, then took it, gripping it tightly. By sunrise, they reached a small diner off the highway. Darius used a payphone to call an old friend, a journalist named Nina he used to drive around during her early reporting days. She owed him a favor. Within an hour, Nina arrived, short, sharp-eyed, and suspicious. "You better have something big, Darius. I left my bed for this." He gestured to Amara. "This is something big." When Nina realized who she was, her eyes widened. "Holy hell! You're not here for fame," Amara interrupted. "Just the truth." She handed Nina the flash drive. "Everything's in there. Financial records, emails, the entire surveillance system. If it goes public, people will know what they've done." Nina stared at it like it was gold. "You realize they'll come for me next, right?" Amara nodded. "That's why I need it done fast." Nina smirked. "Lady, I don't do slow." 3 days later, the story broke. Tech empire exposed. Whitfield innovations tied to illegal surveillance and fraudulent military contracts. The internet exploded. News stations ran her face non-stop. The board members were arrested, investors fled, and Amara's name was cleared overnight. But while the world talked, Amara stayed quiet. She never appeared on TV, never returned to her office. Instead, one morning, a yellow cab pulled up to Darius's small apartment. He opened the door to find her standing there, in jeans, a hoodie, and that faint jasmine scent. "You know," she said softly, "I've been looking for a new driver." He chuckled. "I thought you were done running companies." "I am," she said, smiling. "This time, I want to start something smaller, something that helps people, not control them. A non-profit for ex-convicts, underpaid workers, people like you who get overlooked." He crossed his arms, amused. "And what? You want me to be your partner?" "I want you to be my compass," she said simply. "You're the only person who ever took me somewhere safe." For the first time in a long while, Darius felt something warm in his chest. Purpose. He nodded. "All right, Ms. Whitfield. But this time, you're paying the fare." She laughed, and for the first time, it wasn't the laugh of someone hiding, it was the laugh of someone free. Months later, their foundation, the Cole Whitfield Trust, opened its first community center on the south side. Cameras flashed, reporters gathered, and when one asked Darius how it all began, he smiled and said, "Just a late-night cab ride, brother. Just one ride that changed everything." As the crowd applauded and the lights faded, Amara leaned toward him. "You know, you never told me what your mother would have said about all this." Darius grinned. "She'd say I finally gave something without expecting it back. And it came back when I needed it most." Amara smiled, resting her hand over his. "Then she was right." He nodded. "Yeah. She usually was." The two of them stood together, watching the community they built fill with people. Laughter, warmth, hope. And for once, Darius realized he wasn't just driving someone else's story anymore. He was finally living his own. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness, refusing a fare, offering a hand, believing someone when no one else will, can rewrite destinies. What would you have done if you were Darius that night? Would you have driven away, or stayed to help a stranger? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Subscribe to Residential Stories.